Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are tackling a topic that feels, well, it feels almost confrontational.
It does.
You know that specific kind of existential dread, where you look at your life, your job, your relationships, your bank account, and just think, how did I end up stuck here?
Or even worse, is this it?
Exactly. Is this it? And we have a stack of notes today that promises not just a little incremental improvement, like drink more water or wake up at 5 a.m. This is a complete overhaul.
It is. The source material actually uses the phrase unfucking your life.
A very direct phrase.
It is a very aggressive phrase, I know, but frankly, the source material warrants it. We're diving into the philosophy of Alfred Adler, and specifically through the lens of the book, The Courage to be Disliked.
Right.
But we aren't just summarizing a book here. We're looking at a very specific interpretation of the text that breaks down why so many of us are unhappy, and it offers a roadmap out that is, honestly, pretty controversial.
Oh, it is. I was reading the briefing for this, and there were moments where I genuinely felt defensive. I felt like the book was yelling at me. The source identifies 3 lives of failure that most people are trapped in, and I read the descriptions, and I had to, put the paper down because I felt called out.
It's an uncomfortable mirror to look into, but that's the point. The premise here is that before we can even talk about freedom or happiness, we have to identify the cage we've built for ourselves.
Okay, so let's look at the cage. The source outlines these 3 archetypes of unhappy lives. Life number 1 is the drifter. And I think we all know this person. I might have been this person in my 20s.
The drifter. This is the person with high energy, maybe even high intelligence, but zero traction.
Right.
One week, they're all in on crypto. They've bought the courses. They're watching all the YouTube videos. They're posting about it nonstop.
And 2 weeks later?
2 weeks later, crypto's a scam, and now they're day trading stocks. Then it's drop shipping. Then it's learning to code.
They're always moving, but never arriving. It's like they're running on a treadmill at full speed.
Exactly. They're hunting for the next big thing because they don't actually know what they want. They're chasing, external validation or a quick win. They're busy. They feel productive because they're exhausted at the end of the day. But if you zoom out, they're just running in circles.
Yeah, no destination. That's painful to hear because it feels like so much wasted potential. Okay, so let's move to life number 2, the dissatisfied doer. This one feels more common for the corporate crowd. This is the person who did everything right.
This is the tragedy of competence. This is the person who is actually doing the thing. They have the steady job, the relationship, the family role, but they hate it.
They hate it.
They're walking a path they know deep down isn't theirs, and they live with this low-level background radiation of regret.
It's the Sunday scaries, but for your whole life.
Precisely. They know they won't achieve their full potential there, but they keep walking it because it's safe, or because it's what their parents wanted, or because they've convinced themselves that it's just too late to change. They're the responsible, unhappy people.
And then there's life number 3. This is the one that hit me hardest. The blamer.
The blamer is the ambitious person who never starts. They have a clear goal. They know exactly what they want to do, write that novel, start that agency, get in shape, but
They don't.
And they have a library of perfectly logical reasons why. I don't have the time, I don't have the capital, the market is bad right now. My motivation just isn't there today.
So they outsource the responsibility for their inaction to the universe.
Precisely. They protect their ego by blaming circumstances. So if you see yourself in any of these, and let's be honest, most of us probably cycle through all 3 at different points, the source material suggests you aren't just unlucky, you're trapped.
Trapped in a mindset.
In a specific mindset. And the tool for dismantling that mindset is this book, The Courage to be Disliked.
Which is structured as a conversation, right? It's not a textbook.
No, it's a Socratic dialogue. It spans 5 nights between this cynical, troubled young man and a philosopher. And our mission today is to basically compress those 5 nights of intense debate into a practical guide.
Okay, let's get into night 1. This is where the controversy starts immediately. The young man basically tells the philosopher, look, life is hard. I'm weighed down by my past. I have trauma. I have history. I can't just be happy because of what happened to me.
And the philosopher's response is the first major hurdle for the reader. He just says, life is simple. You are the one making it complicated.
Wow. If I was venting about my trauma and someone said that to me, I'd walk out of the room. It sounds incredibly dismissive.
He does.
It sounds like he's saying, just get over it.
It sounds like that at first. But the philosopher isn't dismissing the pain. He's challenging the mechanism of how we process it. And he uses a story to explain this. The tale of 2 men, Mike and Paul. This story is just essential to understanding the shift from being a victim to being free.
Okay, lay it out for us.
So, meet Mike. Mike comes from a tough background. Poverty, instability, maybe a broken home. But he has a dream. He wants to be rich, and specifically, he wants to travel to Japan.
Okay.
He scrapes together some money and decides to be an entrepreneur. He takes his life savings, let's say it's $100,000, and he starts a clothing business.
A classic startup story. Buying wholesale, selling high.
Exactly. And he fails hard. He loses the savings. He feels crushed. But, he's resilient. He watches some motivational content, gets back on the horse. He tries digital marketing, fails again. Finally, he tries selling journals in collaboration with an influencer, and it actually works. Sales are coming in.
Finally, a win for Mike.
Briefly. Then his business partner steals all the liquid cash and just vanishes.
Oh, no.
Mike is back to zero. He's devastated. And right around this time, he reads a newspaper headline that says 90% of businesses fail in the first year.
That is a brutal sequence of events. And what does Mike do?
He nods. He says, I knew it. And he quits. He accepts that he's traumatized by the theft and the failure, and he decides business just isn't for him. The universe is against him.
Okay. That feels like a very human reaction. I think most people would stop there. So what about Paul?
Paul has the exact same background, same poverty. He starts businesses. He fails. In fact, Paul fails for 5 years straight, but he keeps going. In his 7th year, he hits a home run, becomes a multimillionaire.
Wow.
And one day, sitting in his mansion, he reads that exact same headline. 90% of businesses fail in the first year.
And his reaction?
He nods, smiles, and thinks, good thing I didn't stop at year 1.
Okay, so on the surface, this just sounds like grit. Like, just don't give up. But
Yeah.
the philosopher is arguing something deeper here. It's not just about persistence.
Much deeper. This brings us to the core technical concept of Night 1, the difference between etiology and teleology.
Okay, let's define those, because those are definitely grad school words.
Right. Etiology is the study of causation. It's the dominant view in our culture, largely thanks to Freud, it says. The past defines the present. Mike failed because he was traumatized by his partner stealing money.
Cause leads to effect.
Yeah,
The trauma caused the quitting.
exactly.
Which feels true. I mean, we say this all the time. I have trust issues because my ex cheated on me. I'm anxious because my parents were critical. We draw a straight line from the past event to our current behavior.
We do. We view our personality as a result of our history. But Adler, and the philosopher, he argues for teleology. This is the study of purpose.
Purpose.
Adler suggests we're not driven by past causes, but by our current goals.
And this is where the source drops that bomb. Trauma doesn't exist.
Right. And we need to be very precise here because listeners usually balk at this. Adler is not saying bad things don't happen. He isn't saying abuse or war or theft aren't real or painful.
Okay.
He's saying that trauma as a permanent, arresting force that controls your future is a narrative that we construct.
So apply this to Mike.
Yeah.
You're saying Mike didn't quit because he was traumatized.
No. According to teleology, Mike's goal, his subconscious goal, was to avoid getting hurt again. He wanted safety. So he used the theft, and he used the 90% fail statistic as tools to justify his goal of quitting.
So he created the narrative.
He created the narrative of I am traumatized to serve his purpose of staying safe.
Wow. So the trauma isn't the driver, it's the excuse. He manufactured the state of being traumatized so he wouldn't have to risk failing again.
It's the tool. Paul's goal was success, so he used the exact same bad experiences as data to learn from.
Yeah.
The events were identical. The meaning given to them was entirely subjective based on their goal.
There's that famous example of the two soldiers, right?
Yes. 2 soldiers in the same platoon, same battle. They see the same horrific things. One comes home and develops deep psychological scars, believing they're broken by what they saw. The other processes the grief and becomes a pacifist, dedicating their life to peace.
Same event.
The event, the cause, is identical, but the outcome is the opposite. Adler says this proves that the event doesn't determine the outcome, the interpretation does.
That is empowering, but also terrifying, because it takes away my ability to play the victim. I can't say, I'm like this because of my childhood anymore.
Exactly. If trauma determines your life, you can say, it's not my fault, look at what happened to me. If you determine your life based on your goals, then you are responsible for how you handle the pain. And most of us, deep down, we prefer to be victims because it's easier. It relieves us of the burden of trying.
So the takeaway from night 1 is, stop looking at the past as a cause. Look at your goal. Ask yourself, what is my purpose right now? If your purpose is to stay in your comfort zone, you will find plenty of trauma in your past to justify it.
Correct. You have to decide to write a new chapter, regardless of the previous pages.
All right, let's move to night 2. Because the philosopher doesn't let up. He says, okay, you've dealt with the past. Now let's look at your problems right now. And he drops another absolute statement. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems.
All of them. Every single one.
That feels like an exaggeration. What about money problems? What about health? If I break my leg, that's a problem and has nothing to do with anyone else.
Well, think about it. If you were the only person on Earth, literally the last human alive, would you worry about money?
No, there's no economy.
Would you worry about your clothes? No, no one to impress. Would you worry about being successful?
No, because there's no one to compare myself to.
Okay, I see. Even the broken leg. It would hurt, yes, but I wouldn't worry about how it affects my job or if people think I'm clumsy.
Exactly. Even loneliness only exists because we know others exist and we aren't with them.
Mm.
Every worry we have is anchored in our connection to or comparison with other people.
Okay.
And to prove this, the source tells the story of the blushing girl. And honestly, this is a masterclass in psychology. I love this story. So a girl comes to the philosopher. She likes a boy, but she can't confess her feelings because every time she gets near people, she blushes uncontrollably. It's embarrassing. It's crippling.
Right.
She wants the philosopher to cure her blushing so she can ask him out.
It seems like a straightforward medical or psychological issue. Fix my symptom.
But the philosopher says no. He tells her, you don't blush because you're nervous.
Mm-hmm.
You create the blushing in order to not have to ask him out.
This is teleology again. Her goal is self-protection. She's terrified of rejection. If she asks him out and he says no, it confirms she isn't good enough. And that is an unbearable pain.
So as long as she has the blushing, she has a safety buffer. She can tell herself, I could be with him if only I didn't have this blushing problem.
The blushing is her shield. It allows her to live in the possibility of love without risking the reality of rejection. She's prioritizing her safety over her romance, and her body is cooperating by giving her a physical excuse.
That is twisted. But we all do this, don't we? We self-sabotage.
Yeah. Constantly. We get sick before big presentations. We procrastinate before big deadlines. We create obstacles so that if we fail, we can say, well, I wasn't at my best. And if we succeed, we say, I'm amazing. I did this despite the obstacles.
It's all a defense mechanism against interpersonal judgment.
It is.
So how do we fix this? The source gives a specific tool called the separation of tasks. This is the one concept I've actually tried to use in my daily life since reading the notes.
It's the most practical tool in the book. It's about drawing a line in the sand. On one side, you have your tasks. On the other, others' tasks. The rule is simple. Do not intervene in other people's tasks and do not let them intervene in yours.
This sounds simple, but in practice, it's really hard. Give us a concrete example.
The traffic example is the easiest entry point. You're driving. Someone cuts you off and honks at you aggressively.
My immediate reaction is anger. What is your problem? I'm a good driver. You're the idiot. I want to roll down the window and yell.
Right. You take it personally. But let's separate the tasks. What is your task?
To drive my car safely and reach my destination.
And what is the other driver's task?
Their emotions, their hurry, their bad manners, their opinion of my driving.
Right. So if you get angry, you are essentially trying to manage their task. You're trying to control their opinion of you or their emotional state.
Yeah, you're carrying baggage that isn't yours. If I think they're disrespecting me, I'm intervening in their task. Their opinion of me is their business, not mine.
And you're letting them intervene in yours, which is driving safely.
Okay, traffic is one thing. But what about work? What about a micromanaging boss? That feels harder to ignore because they actually have power over you.
Same principle.
Yeah.
Your task is to do your work to the best of your ability, to be competent, communicative, and punctual. Your boss's task is to manage the team. If your boss is anxious, angry, or unreasonable, that is their task. That is their emotional regulation issue.
So I shouldn't try to fix my boss's mood. I shouldn't walk on eggshells.
No, you can't fix it anyway. If you spend your day worrying, does he like me? Is he mad at me? Man, you're neglecting your task, the work, to try and control his task, his feelings. It's a recipe for burnout.
You do your job. Let him handle his emotions.
Exactly. If his behavior affects your work, you address the behavior, but you don't take on the emotional burden.
And this applies to big dreams too, right? Going back to Mike and Paul.
Yes. The statistic that 90% of businesses fail is a market outcome. It's largely out of your control. That is the market's task. Your task is the effort. Your task is the product quality. If you obsess over the outcome, will people buy this? You paralyze yourself.
So you can only control the input, never the output. It's a bit stoic, isn't it? Focus on what you control.
Very stoic. But Adler takes it a step further into the emotional realm, which leads us to night 3. Because if I stop caring about what my boss thinks or what the other driver thinks or what my crush thinks, isn't that scary?
Yeah, the young man asked the philosopher, won't I be lonely? Won't people hate me?
Right, if I just do my own thing and ignore everyone's expectations, I'm going to be an outcast.
And here we arrive at the title of the book. The philosopher offers a definition of freedom that is incredibly hard to swallow, he says. True freedom is being disliked by some people.
I struggle with this. We are biologically wired to want to be liked. It's a survival instinct. If the tribe dislikes you, you die in the wilderness.
It is. But think about the cost of that instinct in the modern world. If you need everyone to like you, you are constantly monitoring their expectations. You're molding yourself to fit what you think they want. You're living their life, not yours.
So being disliked isn't a sign of failure.
No. Being disliked is proof that you are living authentically. It is a receipt for your freedom.
A receipt for your freedom.
Yeah. If no one dislikes you, it means you aren't standing for anything. You're just a mirror reflecting everyone else.
That's a powerful reframe. Being disliked is the cost of entry for being yourself.
Correct. And to achieve this, the source suggests a radical strategy. It's called the disappear technique.
Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean moving to a cabin in the woods or faking your own death.
No, it's not physical. It's a mental shift. The suggestion is to disappear from the validation game for a set period, say 6 months. You go into ghost mode regarding others' opinions.
What does that look like practically?
It means you stop explaining yourself. You stop apologizing for who you are or what you want. You focus only on your tasks. You work on your health, your finances, your skills.
So if friends get annoyed that you aren't going out drinking every Friday,
that's their task.
Yeah.
If your family judges your new career path, their task.
You essentially become a submarine. You run silent and deep.
Exactly. And the source claims the result is that you become an unbeatable beast. Because imagine how much energy leaks out of you every single day just worrying about perception.
Can I say the wrong thing? Do they think I'm successful? Does this photo look good?
It's exhausting just listing those. It's like having 20 browser tabs open in your brain.
If you plug that leak, if you reclaim that 40 or 50% of your mental energy and you pour it all into your own growth, your progress explodes. You become unrecognizable to people.
There's a paradox here, though, right? The source says that when you stop trying to make people like you, they actually end up liking you more.
They respect you. People are drawn to those who are self-possessed. Think about the people you admire most. Are they the ones desperately seeking approval, agreeing with everyone, laughing too hard at bad jokes?
No. They're the ones who seem comfortable in their own skin. They know who they are.
Exactly. When you separate your tasks, you aren't needy. You aren't grasping. That independence is magnetic. But you have to be willing to pay the cost first. You have to be willing to walk through the fire of being disliked to get to the respect on the other side.
So let's bring this all together. We started with the 3 unhappy lives, the drifter, the dissatisfied doer, and the blamer. And we have a roadmap out, but it's not an easy stroll.
No, it requires active mental combat. First, shift from etiology to teleology. Stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is my goal right now?
Don't let your history be a shackle. You are not a machine defined by past inputs. You are a human defined by future goals.
Second, the separation of tasks. Draw that line. You control your effort, your actions, and your mind. You do not control other people's opinions, emotions, or reactions.
Stop trying to do your job for them. Let them handle their own business.
And finally, accept the cost of freedom. The courage to be happy is the courage to be disliked. If you can tolerate being misunderstood or judged by a few people, you gain ownership of your entire life.
I do want to circle back to the trauma thing one last time before we go, just to be absolutely clear. The expert in our source material makes a really good point in the outro about the nuance there. I don't want people walking away thinking we said their pain isn't real.
Yes, it's vital we land this correctly. The author's statement, trauma doesn't exist, is a provocation. It's meant to shock you out of passivity. It is not gaslighting.
Right.
The pain you felt was real. The injustice was real. If you were hurt, that happened.
But the nuance is this. You must refuse to view that pain as a permanent definition of your future.
Exactly. We should view trauma as an experience to learn from, a difficult chapter, but not a prison sentence that we are forced to serve forever.
It's about taking the pen back. You can't erase the earlier chapters, the ink is dry, but you are the one holding the pen for the next page.
Exactly. You are the author, not the character.
So here's our final thought for you to chew on today. We talked about the philosopher who felt short. He was 155 centimeters, and he felt inferior until he imagined being the last person on Earth.
Right. In a world of one, height has no meaning.
So ask yourself this. If you were suddenly the last person on Earth, no Instagram, no boss, no parents, no judgmental neighbors, no society, what flaws about yourself would suddenly vanish?
Would you still feel poor? Would you still feel ugly? Would you still feel like a failure?
And if those things would vanish then, why are you letting them hold you back now?
It's a question worth sitting with.
Thanks for diving in with us.
Until next time.